Oh, cut that.
Underrated. Underrated favorites, movies you might have missed with Nique and Roost. And thank you for joining us. We're excited. Hello, everyone. This is Underrated Favorites, movies you might have missed. My name is Rooster.
And I am Nique, and today we are joined by...
The homie Chris.
The homie Chris. Guests on the pod. We love guests on the pod.
So,
yeah.
On this podcast, we take a look at movies that are at least 10 years or older, and we feel like they deserve some re-examination, a little revisit, and we see if time missed them for good reason or if they deserve a little extra shine. Mm-hmm. And so this week, we are going to be doing a movie that the homie Chris has been asking for a minute. Actually,
for as long as this pod has started. Actually, it might have been before
when the idea was initially
you were
thrown out there.
This is the movie. When that day comes, I'm here 100%. And so we're very happy that day has come.
It's happening. And what would you like to tell the people what that movie is?
So today we're going to talk about a movie that is near and dear to my heart, Death to Smoochy.
Yeah.
Death to Smoochie.
Death to Smoochy.
Yeah, so just so you know, we're going to do a brief, spoiler-free rundown before we get into the shits. So, Roost, why don't you hit them with the stats?
Absolutely. So Death to Smoochy came out in 2002. It is a satirical black comedy that stars Edward Norton, Jon Stewart, Catherine Keener, Danny DeVito, and the late legend Robin Williams. It was actually directed by Danny DeVito, as well as him being in it. A brief kind of summary of the plot. In Death to Smoochy, Williams plays corrupt kid show Rainbow Randolph, who eventually gets busted and loses his show and is replaced by Sheldon Mopes and his pink rhino character, Smoochy. Needless to say, Rainbow Randolph completely spirals and projects his fall from grace onto Smoochy, vowing revenge on Mopes. Things go awry, the calamity ensues. The movie has Irish gangs, the mafia, corporate selling out against keeping it real for the Niños. It had a budget of $50 million and only made $8.3 million at the box office. It has a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 5.3 out of 10 on IMDb. You can currently watch it on HBO Max and YouTube. So this is the pre-spoilers concession chat. How old were you when you first saw the movie? Why does this movie hit so near and dear to your heart, homie Chris?
I don't know. It was during the time when Edward Norton was on his run. He was doing a lot of movies, and I was in Edward Norton phase. He was
like, I want to be in Rounders.
It doesn't, Rounders. Fight Club. And I was like, this guy can't miss. And then I was like, Death to Smoochy. It's just like a silhouette on the title.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm gonna check this out. And it's quirky. It's dark. It's everything that I feel like I ever wanted in a movie, and that might be super niche to me, but
it's so great.
Yeah, but
you're learning about the homie Chris right now.
Yeah, I think I was listening. 21 or 22 when I first saw it.
Right on.
So, but
Chris, you.
I saw this when it came out around that time. I think it was shortly either before or after I moved to San Antonio, and my homeboy Creepy Larry he loved this movie, and so he was like, "You gotta see Death to Smoochy, dude."
Shout out to Creepy Larry.
Yeah, Death to Smoochy, you gotta see it, dude. And then I remember Creepy Larry is one of my favorite movie friend people because he got me into The Big Lebowski and a lot of other movies. He watches Eraserhead, these movies where you're like, what the fuck am I watching? And so Death to Smoochy, the first time I saw it, I was 17, 18, maybe 19. And I was just like, dude, I don't even know what the fuck this is. I'll come back to it, but it's always it was on TBS a lot. Mm-hmm. So I would always catch it and be like, oh, is that one part where
yeah, it's definitely one of those movies that you could throw on in the background.
Oh,
and just when the parts come on that you want to see, you can just kind of tune in real quick and then kind of.
Oh yeah,
it's definitely one of those.
Definitely. What about you, Dominique? This is your first time seeing it.
I saw it at work earlier today.
Yeah.
Shout out to my job.
Getting paid.
As far as a relationship, I think it was oh dang, I wrote down a sticky note of quotes and I left it in my car. Oh well. But it was one of that where it had pieces where I wanted to remember what they were saying. I think it was. I don't think it's like
It was a very
pinnacle of and to my heart like movie. Like some people, and there's no shade to that. But I do think it surprised me. I thought it was gonna be way more stupid. And it wasn't. So it was enjoyable. It was an enjoyable watch.
I'm glad you went in with that mindset. Like, this is going to be way stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, maybe that's what saved it. Maybe if I would have been like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the greatest movie ever, then I would have just been disappointed. Who knows?
It's definitely super silly.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about like the tone of the movie and like everything that's going on and then like kind of the theme of it, you're kind of like, oh, this is a little silly.
Yeah. And we'll get into that more.
Because also it has a murder's row of actors in it.
Yes.
And I remember when I saw like, oh man, same thing. Edward Norton was early Edward Norton. I had a lot of stock in Edward Norton. I was ready to see what he would do. Robin Williams was still like a hot commodity. You're like, oh wow.
This is one of his
And this is one of his dark, like kind of like he's doing something different.
Yeah, and he was filming this like the same year he was doing Insomnia. So he was just doing
in a dark phase.
Yeah, he was doing shit.
But that's not uncommon, right? You
photo.
usually see like hordes of actors kind of working on projects together for a period of time.
Yeah, because even Catherine Keener, like I love Catherine Keener as an actress.
I feel like I saw her a lot at one point, and then like I just never really saw her in any roles again.
Yeah, she kind of fades in and fades out, but you're always like, oh yeah, she's money. So I think I don't know what I was expecting. I think I was expecting almost maybe more like The Big Lebowski or a film like that, and it didn't hit that mark for me, but it's very quotable. And then sometimes I just always like, even when it's on in the background, I'll just hear Edward Norton say something and I'll just like chuckle. Because it's just like, this is kids,
Yeah.
We won't get into spoilers.
Yeah. So like we said,
I think we covered also why it's on this pod. Like, in talking
pretty much.
About it. It's because I mean, I have never heard of this movie before. Going to the heart of what Underrated Favorites is about. It's the ones that didn't get their full moment for whatever reason and assessing the reason. And we'll get into like our thoughts about why later. But is that kind of like, do y'all hear anyone besides each other talk about this movie?
So usually like when I get into discussions with movies about people and we're just talking about like our favorite movies, and I'll just kind of like, have you ever heard of Death of Smoochy? One, they either have not heard of it, or if they have heard of it, like they're a huge fan, because there are people who have seen it. Yeah, because there are people who've seen it and it's like totally it's gone. Like they saw it and they're like, okay, cool. Like, that was a cool movie. But yeah, super fans, or I don't know if I would say super fans, but like people who really enjoy the movie and people who've just never heard of it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say it rises to the level of like a cult movie either, but like the people who like it love it, and I would also say that I think it's also on this podcast because when you look at even like Catherine Keener, Danny DeVito, all these actors in it, if you're like laying out their filmography and you're like, what are their best movies? Death to Smoochie is probably on the very tail end of the work that they've done.
It is like a side project for sure. Like they all got together. Hey, it'd be funny. Like, boom.
Exactly.
Death to Smoochie.
So I think that's the other thing. Even if you are a Robin Williams fan, an Edward Norton fan, a Danny DeVito fan, like
there's so many other things that when you talk to people about them that you have to talk about.
But I will say they do act hard in this movie.
Oh, they commit.
Yeah, they commit to the bit. Like,
yeah, no, 1,000%. All right, so it is currently on Max and YouTube if y'all want to check it. But now we're gonna get to the part
where we get into the shits and we start spoiling stuff. So it's time to rewind and pause.
Yeah. So, without spoiling, I mean, we are going to spoil.
We're in the spoilers now.
To start from the top, I had to just tell you this text message I got from Dominique. I'm assuming that she was watching the film. I like just out of nowhere, I get a text like an hour and a half ago that says they fucking kill Spinner, dude. And like
I was pissed.
To hear radio silence and then that. Oh, it was great.
Pissed. Like,
hey, yo, but talk about kicking the beehive, right?
Right. All right, so let's get into it. The story, the plot, the originality. Let's talk about the originality of this film. Is it an original, quirky movie, or is it like a psychotic fever dream that Danny DeVito had?
Both.
Okay, it could be both.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
I would
like-
probably say it's bold. I mean, it's super quirky. I think it was designed to be that way, you know. But yeah, it's definitely got a little bit of that, like, you know how he played Penguin in what's his name's Batman, like,
It's
you know,
campy.
Well, no,
Yeah.
see, the thing is, I think it also comes from him. Like, he hadn't directed too many things, but this is right after him directing Matilda, and it has heart. Like, that's what I think. It's just like, this is not a children's movie,
No.
but it has the heart of a children. I feel like it was handled with the care of a children's movie, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yep.
So
Since
that's-
this was your first time watching it, I'm curious, what did you think of like the theme? What do you think the themes were? What was the overarchingness of it? Or is it just banana pants crazy?
No, so I think there was definitely some banana pants craziness of it. I feel like this is definitely what Robin Williams came back to channel for his role in Robots, where he was the chaotic Fender character.
Yeah.
I think Fender was the name, but there was a lot of that. But I feel like it's like the heart of this is that, like, yo, this is about children, and I think it was probably some of the work, like Danny DeVito had to like fight to protect the actress that was a child in Matilda, like, and I think it was really just like, man, like, people are fucked up, like, let me throw this in their face in a way that is funny. Like,
Yeah,
I
like
think
the
that's
like the extortion of children, but like,
Yeah.
mafia style.
Yeah.
so I think that's kind of what I think is ultimately, and I think it's also, dang, I had a quote for this. Their quote from the one, don't think you know everything. That's what it ends with. But it's like, sometimes a crow can sound like a lark, and sometimes winter can feel like spring.
That's just
Don't think you
Shakespearean
know
right there.
everything.
Yeah. It's like
I
one of
think
the-
that's-
one
it's
of
holding
the-
your childlike wonder without being emphasized, because that's one thing I really liked with Mope's character, is that they have him be so optimistic. Like, I'm surprised you like this, because I feel like it was going back to Robots. You hated Rodney's character because he was too optimistic,
Oh, I
and
didn't
I feel
say I
like
like this movie.
Oh my
We'll get
gosh.
to that. It's not that I dislike it, and I'll kind of put a pin in that. But keep going.
Well, no, so yeah, we'll come back to that. But no, I was saying, like, just like I think there's something about having a childlike wonder and optimism as you face crazy shit. I think that's really important in this. Like,
Yeah.
do y'all feel like there's something that I missed, and like the point is to just be funny? Like, I don't know.
No.
We're in the spoilers part, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
like,
say everything.
So, like the idea is that, like, Sheldon Mope's character is like, he goes away for a little bit for like anger management issues, right?
Yeah.
And then he finds a way to like channel, all that into like encouraging kids and like getting them to go down the right path, right? And so I think
Encouraging people, because he was at a clinic at the beginning.
Yeah,
of this.
Yeah, the heroin. That was one of my favorite scenes. We'll get to that later.
I wrote down the lyrics
When
to
he
the
was
song,
like,
and I
"Did you come here on the H train to Catherine Keener?" And she's like, "No, I have an opportunity for you." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm sure you do." Well, yeah, no, he's great.
Yeah, no, but I think a lot of what you see in the movie is like him trying to protect that like sanctity of like, hey, these are kids. Like, you know what I mean? We gotta like, this is what failed me. This is why I ended up the way I was.
Yeah,
and we're trying to turn it around. We're trying to make a dent. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, that's his whole thing.
Because big junkies come from little junkies,
That's
and we
true.
need to stop these
But
kids.
that's,
literally
but that's
that
why.
line.
But that's why you end up having like all these other, like the Irish mafia. Like they see the purity of like Sheldon Moe. It's like, oh yeah, no, we're gonna protect this guy. Like, you know what I mean? And having those forces against someone who's like supposed to be so pure of heart, like that's kind of cool, right?
It's
like no
kind
one
of
can
punk rock.
Yeah, no, because nobody
Like,
can really
that's-
fuck with him.
That's the thing that
that's
to
the
me
thing.
that sings the most about this movie is it actually has this punk rock thing about like not selling out
Yeah.
to like
Yes.
corporate forces. And you know who it makes me think of a lot when I see this movie now, and it's sort of what helped the movie grow in my eyes was Steve from Blue's Clues. Sort of like,
yeah, that was wild.
Yeah, and then like how he's come
What
back.
was that, like a year ago when he
Yeah.
came back and like gave his little
I think
His
it
little
was
pep talk.
It was like
Oh,
4
dude,
years
yeah.
ago. It was during COVID.
But similarly, like the way
Yes.
that kind of the machine creates these things for kids, And like, you don't have a Jim Henson at the home anymore. You don't have like these people. You don't have a Mr. Rogers anymore, who's like, this is good and that's enough. It's good for kids. It's healthy for kids. This is wonderful, and that's the goal. Now it's like we were just talking about Cars. It's like we got to put Lightning McQueen on fucking everything.
Yeah.
And so it is punk rock a little bit. That while Edward Norton is not the paragon of punk rock, he is very much like, hey, I'm just earnest as fuck, and I really believe that we can't be doing this for kids. Like I'm not going to do this ice show for some company.
I don't want to sell them sugar. I don't want to sell like, toys that not every kid can afford. Like I don't want to be selling out that way. Like that was his whole thing.
I want to make sure my cookie song like points out that there's nothing artificial in these cookies. Make cookies at home, and I'm not going to do a cookie song without being able to do a please and thank you song, because that's the point.
That's the point.
Like, it was,
and that's kind of fucking punk rock.
Yeah,
like that was because
she was on his
heart
ass.
touching. Yes,
she was like
it's heartwarming.
Yeah,
eat your heart out, Coco Melon.
Right.
Yeah. So I think like, as far as like, I don't think there's any like super established tropes except for like boy gets the girl. But then I love how they even twist that with like, does boy get the girl or does she just have a fetish for these kid characters?
Yeah.
Like, and that
like
was
she's definitely just a groupie. Like, and that's kind of like what they say like at one point, right?
Yeah. But I think that's the only trope that I could see in this. And so they even spin that on its head. So I think it's great, and that really adds to its originality. Like,
yeah. So would you say that it sort of landed in its execution? Because I will say this: when Death to Smoochy came out in 2002. I feel like it's aged better than when it initially landed. And so it's this weird thing where I don't know if Danny DeVito was that smart to kind of see the future, to like all these things that Norton's character is advocating for in the goodness in children, and sort of the now we kind of live in this hyper like health kick society, especially when it relates to kids. Back then, like being a vegan, or like he has that moment with the soy dog.
Yes,
and it's like
down.
it was sort of like
Spirulina, baby.
Yeah, you were kind of like, I remember like kind of really hating him because it was just like, oh my God, like this guy is just like
so
insufferable.
Yeah, he's supposed to be that way.
Right. But now
but it's like, but then it goes
totally
going.
different.
It goes past, but I think it's like it goes past just him being annoying, because, and I think that goes with his conflict with Nora, is like he's not just annoying for annoying. Like, no, he's just very conscious of how his actions and choices affect those around him and affect the world. Like, and that's what takes it past there. I don't think it's like so much of Danny DeVito knowing the future.
Sure.
Honestly, I feel like it's just kind of like this. It makes me think back to our idiocracy discussion, where it's like, it's not that people knew the future. It's just that the future kind of sucks.
Yeah, it was that predictable that they could.
Like,
yeah. No, I agree. I want to talk about standout scenes, but we'll put a pin in that and come back to it. Let's talk about the actors. So you got Robin Williams, you got Norton, you got Keener, you got DeVito. You also got young Jon Stewart as that sort of like shitty corporate, like middle management, kind of guy.
Just your like your stereotypical like manager guy, the yes man. You know?
Like he's a producer, but he's got like maybe associate of the associate of the associate of the producer. He
just got on, and he's really protective of the fact that he just got on.
Well, that's what the boss said to do.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Exactly. I love Angelo. Angelo's is awesome. And then again, sort of, I think, sort of future forward again. Now you have like actors like Peter Dinklage, who's coming out in the new Toxic Avenger movie, and sort of like we normalize sort of little people as actors and sort of roles.
I think he was the first one that wasn't just a little person.
He was Mickey on Seinfeld, and it was just sort of like a normal thing. And he was just
Mickey. He wasn't always like the butt of a little person joke. And like, shout out to him. Like, and he had to have advocated for himself, sure. And the choices he made.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, and then he's so like, I think Angelo to me is what makes me appreciate Edward Norton's character a lot more, because Angelo is also very sincere, but he's also a kind of like byproduct of the system. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna wear the little dorky rainbow suit until they tell me to wear the pink rhino suit.
Well, he's living up to the fact, like, it's that, like, this is kind of all I can do in this, like, theater world, or like in this, like, televised world. So he just kind of, he's like from one show to the next, and he's real humble about it. He's just like, this is just what I do. You know, he's at home cooking spaghetti, you know what I mean? Like, just in his little apartment, you know, just waiting until he has to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
You know, but he does play a major, like, part in the film.
He wins the best friend award. Like, that is a good friend guy.
Bro.
Yeah.
You let him, and then you let him back in your house after he broke your TV. Like, you kicked him out in the moment, but then still let him back in. No.
Like, when your friend is backsliding that hard, the way that Rainbow
Randolph.
Yeah, Rainbow. I keep wanting to call him Rudolph. Rainbow
Ralph.
Randolph. Yeah, it kind of goes both ways. But the way Rainbow Randolph was backsliding, like, that's a good fucking friend, because he had lost his shit, and Angela was just kind of there for him the whole way. What about Williams' character? How did y'all view him in this? Do you think he did a good job? Do you think he kind of he definitely commits to the bit?
I love the redemption arc.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing, you know, it was great for me. Like, you know, it's this idea that he's just like kind of like the main villain, but he's not really the main villain. Like, he's like really bad at being the main villain, and ultimately becomes kind of like a Samwise Gamgee in a way. And like, you know, it's really good.
That is so insulting to Sam. Oh my gosh!
I think it's a smaller level situation.
I think what I meant is, like, you know, he saves the
day,
the protagonist's life. I guess, I will say, Rob, it's not a problem with Rob. I didn't register it as a problem with Robin Williams acting. It felt like a pacing issue with his arc. I felt like it took too long, and I get because there's other things going on, and that goes to the, like, he's not even the main protagonist. Like, he's not even the secondary antagonist. Like, he's not the main antagonist. He's not the secondary. He's like the tertiary.
Yeah.
Falling through, like, and then gets redeemed towards the end. I like the pieces of it, but I just, like, I don't know if it's a pacing issue or if it's an editing issue. Like, the parts where they cut to him sometimes was, like, distracting, and I thought it took away from the main story.
Yeah. Well, I the reason I liked it is because, like, he's just obsessed with Sheldon. Like, he's obsessed with the rhino, with the time slot, like everything that he built. And, like, just like Jon Stewart's character is like, what'd you do it for? You did it for asswipe money, right? Yeah. You know, he was in a position of power and he was extorting people, like, and it was all a power play, you know, and then he lost everything, and then he just, like, starts obsessing over Sheldon Mopes as if it was his fault. That's not whose fault it was, right? He got kicked to the entire network, everything. They abandoned Rainbow Randolph. There was nothing. They gave him a gift basket.
Yeah, they did.
You know, and he just channeled all that towards Sheldon, and then all of a sudden, like, towards the end of the movie, he, like, you know,
once he was shown compassion, Sheldon shows him compassion, and then it's like, oh my gosh, this person that I've been hating is the only one, because all those people that he is, like, ignoring their part and are the ones who actually did him wrong, they kick him to the curb, don't talk to me no more, fuck you. And Sheldon is there, and it's like, I think you have real issues, but I don't think you're a bad person.
Well, yeah, like, there's that scene in the car early on when he takes him to the Nazi rally, where he's kind of like, he's talking to
memorable moment. We'll come back to that.
Yeah. He when he's talking to Sheldon, and as he's doing it,
he's trying to bait him. He's like, are you sure you don't think he's a piece of shit?
Yeah.
And he's like, no.
Don't you think you take a particular glee in the fact that you stole his time slot?
And it's just like, no, I don't really think about it like that. When you think, you know, and it's funny because in a good way too, and I think Williams, just as a testament to him, he kind of plays it both ways, where it's like, he is this fall from grace person, and to what you kind of mentioned about, like, what Jon Stewart says to him in the film, like, we become our jobs, and we become this, and I think Jon Stewart's kind of also, like, I don't want to say a victim of that, but, like, you kind of become these things, and you start to not necessarily become an asshole, but it's just, like, that's why Robin Williams was taking the money at the beginning from parents, was because he didn't need it, but because it's like, what else am I doing? It's that power kick, and you start getting into the power kick of it all. And so when he did fall from grace, he's playing it like, damn, I fucked up. But then at the same time, like, when you have this unresolved anger, you want to put it on something. And you kind of start to realize you're like, this person that I hate isn't even really the problem. And he does that so well.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that. Was there anything in this film that doesn't work for you? I know you guys kind of mentioned the pacing, and I'll kind of talk about it.
I don't know if it's the pacing or the editing, but I feel like one of those two just seems a little off.
To me, it's the focus. I think maybe that's the thing, because it's like you're following Edward Norton for a while, then you kind of jump to Robin Williams for a while. You kind of like follow Keener for a bit. Then you kind of follow. You're back to Norton and DeVito, and it's kind of like it's this weird film sometimes where also like characters come in. Yes, characters come in, come out. Like Spinner, for instance, who we haven't talked about, but we'll talk about in a sec. Is like, at first you're like, what the fuck is this guy here for? Like, and am I supposed to feel bad?
And then
for
turns
him?
out to be such a big part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's where like everything turns.
Because
Yeah.
that's the other side of it too, is Spinner being an adult with essentially like the sensibilities of a 9-year-old, because I think they even say that, because he was a boxer who got punch drunk. It's like Smoochy sees him and is there, and
it's leading with compassion is the way to save.
Yeah, because a lot of people
world.
find him insufferable and annoying because he's the owner of this restaurant, but he's really just a gimmick.
Yeah,
so he's going on the table.
Well, he's like the Rainbow Randolph of that space. It's like, hey, you're the celebrity, but get out there, and this motherfucker can't.
It was what they tried to make Smoochy.
Yeah,
like, and that he fought against at the beginning of the movie.
But then Spinner, his family's the Irish mob.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, which is another very important aspect of this movie.
Totally. Quick standout scenes. Now let's land on that, because I think, to your point, this movie isn't one that, and I've seen it so many times, like I don't have to see it like front to back, but it is one that when I have it on in the background or I see it on TBS, there's moments that capture me. What were some scenes that jumped out at you? I love Edward Norton at the heroin clinic. That's just me, with his little made up Smoochy.
But yeah, I forgot what the song was. It was like, we're gonna get you off that smack.
Yeah.
We gotta get off smack.
Yeah.
Cause smack leads to crack.
Yeah.
That is literally the song. Go watch it. I'm not making it up.
Yeah.
It was
All these songs are fantastic.
Yes. And that goes back to just like, it's leading with compassion is the way to save the world. And I think that's such an important lesson, even right now.
Yeah.
For the other scenes that I know, I put on there the Hal Smoochy scene.
The Hal Smoochy,
when he realizes, we mentioned earlier, Robin Williams is trying to get him canceled, and like temporarily is successful because he takes him to a Nazi rally and has him, he has him performing his friendship song. He loves being friends, and then is like, oops, actually, I don't really can't see who my friends are. So could y'all turn up the audience lights and turn off the spotlight?
All
and
Nazis.
Then it's fucking all Nazis in full regalia. And then the police busted. And so there's him in front of a swastika with his guitar.
with his arm up because he's trying to block the light. Yeah, the big spotlight.
So it's just like, yeah, that was a thing. Any other scenes?
Did you have any?
I mean, I love the last scene where Sheldon loses it, like where he like breaks from like the the sweet guy, and like his anger comes out, and then the Irish mob just like, don't do it, like we'll take care of it. You know what I mean? Like, that goes hard for me.
The one another scene kind of right before that I love that final ice capade scene, because I love that he comes out there and all the kids are like, Smoochy, Smoochy.
And
but again,
like,
this is so
I know
punk
you want to
rock.
hear some Smoochy songs, but I
gotta
have
do
something
this.
Even better, and it's a tribute to Spinner, and it's like a tell of what's been going on with him the whole time. So it has him skating away from Nazis and skating away from like the devils and running through like a makeshift Chinatown.
That was a fever dream.
Yes, that is. But it's just like it was so beautiful, because it's like, we're gonna take this. And and make this kid appropriate. Like, let's watch a slightly kind of kid appropriate version of the whole movie we just watched.
Yeah.
Like,
And Spinner goes off to heaven. And
yes.
it's so good. And I just love how he talks to the audience and the children. That whole like I know you want to hear Smoochy songs, but I gotta be honest, and we believe in honesty, right? And this is just what's on my heart. And then the fact that it's like it's all choreographed already.
Sometimes you feel mad.
Yeah,
you know?
it's just like it's so good, and it's just like this movie is fucking off its balls. Like okay, cool, man. Like at that point, it wins me over, and I'm like, all right, I'm here for it.
I think we do need to go to our final call, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So
we want to talk about what is on your pedestal for Death of Smoochy.
So if you have one thing about this film that you have to put on it can be the vibe, it could be the acting, it could be a specific scene,
specific actor.
What do you put? And you know what? There's no fucking rules to this. If you want to put more than one thing on your pedestal, go ahead. But what makes Death to Smoochy tops for you?
I always got the hammer, Tommy. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my. Okay.
Love that.
Yeah. What about you?
I was going to ask you. So my pedestal, I think my pedestal is a scene that I like alluded to because it's really just like falling in love with Norton's character is what makes the rest of the movie so good for me.
Right.
So it's really when they are first pitching all of the products to it's the scene. I think it's the scene after that where she, Nora, who's the executive for the show, is like, "Yo, we changed your cookie song and get rid of the please and thank you song." And he checks the fuck out. He has been so sweet up to this point, but he like sweetly checks the fuck out of her. And it was like, "These are children. I think you just see wallets with pigtails. I'm not gonna do that because we need to like," and she's like, "You're not gonna change the world." And he's like, "I'm gonna put a dent in it though." Like,
yeah,
it's really that's on the pedestal. Like,
yeah,
the heart.
All right. I'm going to kind of echo that a little bit. On my pedestal, I think Death to Smoochy needs to sort of have a renaissance. It needs to come back and it needs to get sort of remarketed and rebranded as like, yes, like anti-capitalist punk rock sincerity and how that could really be good. Let things just be good. And so that's what I put on my pedestal. What is a movie that you would pair with Death to Smoochy? So if you're watching it, I got mine, so I'll just kind of give mine. Similar vein, Basketball, which is definitely going to be on underrated favorites at some point. But love Basketball.
Love Basketball.
A lot of times, sort of similar thing about selling out and all and such, but hilarious comedy from the creators of South Park. So, Dominique, what would you pair?
You keep on putting me on the spot. I'm looking at
Okay,
Chris.
homie Chris, what would you pair?
With Death to Smoochy?
Yeah, you got to fire, and maybe you fire up one before or you fire up one after Death to Smoochy. What would you put?
I mean, I'm probably going to put on the Rounders. For sure.
Yeah, just an Edward Norton night.
You know, just an Edward Norton night, you know, poker, you know, kind of same context. You know, I don't think you have the spades.
No, a lot of overacting too.
Oh, yeah.
You got Malkovich going for it.
Teddy KGB,
man.
You know,
with the Oreos. Yeah, love it. That's a good call.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
Oh, it might be an underrated favorite. You'll come back for that.
It's a good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go in a completely different direction than both of y'all. I feel like I would, because I feel like this is like halfway a kids movie.
Robots.
I would either Robots or Spy Kids was kind of the vibe.
Oh,
so it's like punk rock, anti-capitalist.
The
Like
OG
they're
Spy
both,
Kids.
the original Spy Kids, because they're both punk rock and anti-capitalist, but it's in these ways that are like that focus on the heart of being anti-capitalist without like being preachy.
Totally.
So, yeah.
So, before we close, we now have our ranking system at the end here now to kind of
Now that we've talked about it.
Now that we've talked about it, we've kind of aired some of our feelings out. For those of you who this is your first time here, at the very top, we have the Underrated Favorite Award, which means give that film its flowers because it is elite and more people need to see it. Right below that, we have Good But Slept On. For those films that didn't catch fire, but because maybe they were just better things out at the time. In the middle, we have Historically Mid, which means this movie is solid, but, you know, it's just kind of mid. Below that, we have The Good Bad Movie. For those movies that are bad, they're justifiably bad.
But we love them for reasons.
They strike a chord. And then at the very, very bottom, we have the certified flop for those movies that nobody watches because they are flop-tastic. So
they suck. All right. Our guest, because this is going to be such a surprise, where would you put Death to Smoochy?
It's an underrated favorite for me.
there you go. There you
guys
go.
knew that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris?
I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to say it's a good but slept on film. It's up there. I understand when people don't like it, but I think it's a marketing issue. I think it's a sort of like, I think the way you had mentioned that you came into it and sort of like you didn't you expected it to be silly and stupid. And then when it turned out to be what it was, you were kind of like, oh, wow, like this is pretty cool. I think if more people approached it that way, it would be more of a cult classic. So.
I agree with yours, but for a different reason. So it's definitely a good but slept on movie because I feel like this does have the heart to be. It has the stuff to be an underrated favorite, but it was really just the time that this came out. So this came out mid-March
2002.
Yeah, 2002. I was about to say 2002, and that sounds weird. But so we still had Harry Potter in theaters from the November, but the year before. Like Black Hawk Down was out, John Q was out, Spy Kids was out. Like there was just so many other good movies, a variety of genres for kids and adults. Like I think it just got lost, honestly.
Can I ask the host a question?
Yeah.
And this is just if you were to have this movie come back, like would you have either re-release or remake?
Ooh.
Damn, that's a really good question.
Both. I think
I kind of almost want to say both.
Yeah.
Because it's
Like I could actually see it. I think you could remake it on like Netflix, for instance.
Okay.
Like don't even make it like big.
It could be a
studio.
a limited series. I feel like
Yeah.
this could be like a good 6-episode show.
Banger, something
Yeah.
like that, and then you can get more into the corporate world. I want to learn more about the Irish mob.
Yeah. I mean, there's only 3 of them.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
It's
Like what that's about. But yeah, overall, I think that's cool. Well, if you want to find Death to Smoochy, it is currently on HBO Max and YouTube. That is us for underrated favorites. We do appreciate y'all tuning in. Follow the homie Chris. Where would they find you, Chris?
Instagram, Texas
San Antonio,
_ Kaiju.
You just here, Texas Kaiju.
I'm hanging out.
Yeah, Dominique and I, you can find Underrated Favorites Pod on IG. This is a Gemini's production. We appreciate y'all joining us, and we'll have some more movies in the future. Anything you want to say signing off?
Nope. We'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thank y'all for joining us. Bye.